welcome to another edition of Live Your Purpose. I'm joined today with Sylvia Blais. Sylvia is a nutritionist over at the Chatham Health Unit. First of all, Sylvia, what is a nutritionist and what is your job description?
I'm glad you asked that question because we get called nutritionists a lot. And one of the things about the title nutritionist, it's not a protected title. So anybody could be a nutritionist. You could be a nutritionist. So we're registered dietitians. We have to go through a certain amount of schooling and either complete an internship program or a master's degree, and then we complete an exam and we become registered. So we belong to the College of Dietitians and we follow their standards. The registered dietitians at the public health unit, we basically service all age groups, the whole lifespan. So for my portfolio, I typically will deal with young families with children 0 to 6. I also deal with prenatal or pregnant moms, and we do some crossover as well, so we help each other out.
Okay, great. Now, there's a lot of talk about sugar nowadays, how it causes cancer and other issues such as diabetes. How much sugar should we be eating daily? And are there alternatives to sugar that maybe we should look at?
Well, the sugar question is a really important one right now because we are consuming excessive amounts of sugar. There really is no minimum recommendation for the amount of added sugar that we require in our diet. So we need to look at how much sugar should we limit ourselves to per day for health. And the World Health Organization came up with an amount, about 10% of your total daily calories. And what that kind of looks like is if you're eating about a 2,000 calorie diet, then that would be about 200 calories worth of sugar. That translates into about 12 teaspoons worth per day of added sugar. So that could be syrups, it could be fruit concentrates, it could be honey, it could be any source of added sugar in the diet. If you are eating a 1,500 calorie diet, then that translates to about 9 teaspoons of added sugar a day. So when you think about having 1 can of pop, you've already consumed your 9 teaspoons of added sugar a day. So you know that we're probably consuming way in excess of what we should be taking in. So that's one thing that we do need to work on and get people to recognize. With the amounts of ultra-processed foods that we're consuming now, we do end up tending to eat a lot more sugar than we should be.
So you're saying that 3 servings of sugar I put in my coffee every morning is a bit much?
Well, it's a good start to your added sugar for the day, for sure, yes.
Yeah, okay. Now, am I prone to diabetes because I'm eating too much sugar, or is that more of a hereditary type of disease?
Well, it's really, it's not that simple. In terms of diabetes risk, we look at, in terms of a bunch of different factors. And sugar could contribute in the fact that it usually contributes a lot of excess calories that could lead to, weight gain over and above a healthy body weight. Okay. That is a risk factor for diabetes. So it could be interpreted that way. So the heredity piece, some people, there is a risk, and that's when we need to be more careful in terms of looking at, being at a healthy body weight and consuming healthier foods and just kind of general overall good nutrition with treats added in as well. But sugar itself is not going to cause diabetes.
Okay. Now you talk about eating healthier foods. Now, there's a lot of talk about these superfoods or power foods. Yeah. What are they and what do they do for our body?
Well, power foods or superfoods are usually a name given to food items that tend to be pretty nutrient dense. They've got a lot of good stuff going for them, and they would be good for us to be eating. But it is more of a marketing term than it really is kind of a criteria, or there's something specific about it. So there's lots of foods out there that could be considered superfoods. Quinoa, kale, broccoli, old-fashioned oats, blueberries. I mean, really, you could run through a lot of different whole foods that you could consider that. But those foods by themselves are not necessarily going to make you healthier if your whole diet in general is not very good. So just adding 1 or 2 superfoods in is not going to change your health overall.
What would you recommend we eat in order to stay healthy?
Well, one of the things that we need to, or we could look at doing, is really watching the amount of sodium that we're taking in. Again, and that's not something that you're asking me what we should eat, but I need to look at that on the flip side as well. Looking at our ultra-processed food intake and basically bringing that down. Because we really rely on those foods, and they tend to have a lot of sugar, fat, and salt in them.
Mm-hmm.
Then we develop these palates that crave those foods, so then it just is this cycle that we crave those foods. Those are the only foods that taste good for us, but they're not nourishing our bodies in a really great way. They're fun to have as treats, but not as everyday food items. We could start adding fish in twice a week, looking at the omega-3 benefits of that, and that's something that we typically don't do a whole lot of. So, and it doesn't have to be expensive salmon fillets. We talk about salmon as being a superfood as well, right? But looking at canned salmon, which could be very affordable, and making it into something that like salmon burgers that actually go over quite well. So the fish, definitely, if we could do that, fatty fish a couple of times a week. Fruits and vegetables in particular. Chatham-Kent has the distinction of being either the lowest or one of the lowest consumers of fruits and vegetables in the province. And we know that, if you're eating a lot of fruits and vegetables, you're probably eating less of the other stuff, because it really is taking up a bigger spot on your plate. It gives us lots in terms of nutrition, and lots in terms of potassium. And potassium can help to balance out the high sodium that we have in our diet, which has a negative effect on blood pressure. So we eat high amounts of sodium, our blood pressure could end up rising, and that potassium can help to balance that a little bit more. So if we're eating a lot of ultra-processed foods, not a lot of fruits and vegetables, we've really put ourselves in a position where we could be at risk.
Talking about processed foods and ultra-processed foods, there's the big gimmick now is, with all the foods, 15% less fat, 50% less fat, reduced fat. Is that a gimmick, or should we be buying those, eating those types of foods?
When those labels are on, or those claims are on a label, they are reduced in fat. But then we need to look at what's replacing it. Because fat gives mouthfeel, it gives flavor, it carries certain vitamins. So we're replacing it because it's missing. And sometimes what happens is they'll put a lot of carbohydrate-based fillers in to take the place of fat, and that's not necessarily in our best interest either. So lower fat peanut butter, sometimes you'll see icing sugar on the label. And that's one thing you need to do, is look at your labels and your ingredients to know and understand what you are consuming.
I know that I'm going to be cutting back on my sugar intake. Maybe I'm going to have one spoonful of sugar in my coffee instead of 3. As you can see, Sylvia is living her purpose. If you have any questions for Sylvia, she can be reached at the Chatham Health Unit, and we'll put that information up on the screen for you. Tune in again next month when we have another amazing person in the Chatham-Kent area living their purpose.